few seconds.
Stream is live.
All right. Welcome back. Where we talk about what it really takes to build, create, and lead without burning out or losing yourself. And here we turn pain into purpose, bust the myths that keep women stuck, and give you real tools to build without the burnout, all while living a life rooted in alignment and truth. And on the show, people feel seen, heard, and appreciated because they leave knowing that they're not alone and that there are other women out there doing it their way and that they can too. So if you're here, it's because your story matters. You're doing powerful work in the world, and that story has the power to wake someone up, shift their perspective, and help them take their next step. So today's guest is someone whose story embodies transformation both in life and business. I'm so excited to have Shereen Campbell here. She is the founder and CEO of My Little Magic Shop, a soulful wellness brand on a mission to remind people of their inner magic. And as an astrologer, shamanic practitioner, and former retail executive, she blends practical strategy with spiritual wisdom to help others manifest joy, abundance, and self discovery. And her work has been featured in Forbes and in Refinery 29, and her Upper West Side shop, which is the best, has become one of New York City's most beloved spiritual spaces and home for rituals, healing, and community. And I have the honor of holding space there too, which makes this conversation even more special. But Shireen, the thing that I love most about her isn't just the success she's built, it's her resilience and her ability to rebuild from her truth and her belief that business can be a vehicle for soul evolution. Welcome, Shireen.
Thank you so much, Isabel. I'm so excited and honored to be on your podcast. And thank you for that amazing introduction.
Thank you. It's all you. That's all the work that you've done. So thank you. So on this podcast, we always like to go straight into a truth. So Shireen once said something that stuck with me. Pluto transits devastate to rebuild. So that
Yeah.
one sentence says it all. And the idea that sometimes things need to fall apart so we can come back stronger is more aligned. So Shireen, let's start. What does this mean? And for those of you that don't know astrology, um, what is this phrase means,
Yeah,
both spiritually and personally?
yeah, absolutely. Pluto transits are very rare. You don't have them a lot in life. So it's one of the things that makes them super special. People talk a lot about Saturn. They're like, Saturn return, Saturn square, Saturn's doing whatever in my life. And we don't hear as much about the Pluto transits. So Pluto is really the planet that rules our sense of power as well as our ability to kind of regenerate and transform. It is the planet of transformation. They kind of think about it like a boulder that you have to move and
Uh-oh, a little bit of technical difficulties. No worries. Let's see. And funny enough, we are in Mercury retrograde, and it is known that during this time, there is a lot of things that affect technology. So we'll wait here while she comes on. There she is. She's back. She's coming back. Let's see. Let's
retrograde is doing a number on us today, or at least on me. So sorry about that. So
that's all right.
planet of sometimes destruction, really. So Pluto energy is all about let me rip everything away from you that no longer serves you, so I can almost strip you clean. And I feel like the easiest visual example of that is I think of for my Game of Thrones folks out there. There was the episode where kind of Dany, like her whole life burns down, and she walks out of, I think it was like a building or like a burnt house. I can't remember. It's been a long time. And she walks out and she's completely naked, singed, but not like fully harmed. And she walks out with these three newborn dragons that, before we thought were not possible. And so I think that's kind of the
That's all right. She'll come back soon. What a way to leave, though, the conversation. It's such a powerful image because a lot of us do get scared of change, and change can be scary. But as she's sharing with the Pluto, it's helping to declutter what's no longer aligned to you and to rebuild from there. And she's back.
Next time, I'm just going to switch to my phone's internet if that happens again.
Yeah, no
Anyhow,
problem.
so Danny walks out. She has these three dragons. She didn't even know that they were possible. She thought her life was over, and she walks out with these three amazing gifts that, essentially had to be infused in fire for them to come to light. And I feel like that is the energy of Pluto. It burns away anything that no longer serves you and then reveals parts of yourself that you didn't even know existed. It also has a tendency to bring up fears. So like all of those fears that you were terrified to confront, come up so they can finally be healed. So with that said, I think that Pluto transits tend to be like really transformational, and over the last few years I've had quite a few. So I had Pluto squaring my sun, and then my Mercury, and then my natal Pluto, and then it's getting ready to oppose my moon. So astrologically it's essentially a stripping away of any ways that I was not fully in my power to reveal my powers to me. So really intense and crazy transformation. And most people will go through, a couple of Pluto transits throughout their lifetime. Normally, there's the big one that happens, in your late 30s, early 40s, and then there's the one that happens,
Oops, she'll be back. She'll be switching over to her phone. Thank you, everyone, for your patience as we deal with the technical difficulties. But as she was sharing, yeah, we go through a couple of them. Oh, there she is. She's coming back.
yes, I'm
And
coming
she's
back.
back.
And I switched the internet. So hopefully I'm switching to my phone. So hopefully that'll make it not do that again. Anyways, I feel like after all of those Pluto transits, now I feel like I went through a lot of facing of fears, a lot of change. I really have stepped into my business fully. It represented the transformation that allowed me to like embrace being a CEO, embrace, being an entrepreneur, which was definitely something I'd always been terrified of doing.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Shereen. And hey, entrepreneurship is a very scary journey. It is definitely it's a journey. It's not a sprint. It's even longer than a marathon.
Yeah,
So
that's real.
um so is there anything in specific that you would share that happened in your business or life that Pluto said, nope, that's it. Now we're going to what you are most aligned in doing.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, honestly, I feel like it started when back in 2023, like I just to back it up, I started my little magic shop online in 2015. So kind of just did it as a side hustle. It actually came a little bit after my Saturn return, where I was in this place where I was like, like I don't know how much further I could do this fashion thing. Like I wasn't progressing in the way that I thought. I'd kind of lost a little bit of the fire that I had when I first started my career. But I also knew that I didn't want to be broke. So I was like, what can I do? Like I at that time I didn't really know of many astrologers that were, super successful or astrologers that even look like me. So I couldn't see a career that would allow me to live a life that, felt comfortable. And so I did what, someone like me would do is I lit a candle, I did a ritual, and I was like, universe, I need support, I need guidance, I need help. So a little bit after the candle goes out, I get to this place where I'm like, wait a second, I know exactly what I should do. It was like the almost like that Two of Swords card in tarot, right? Like where you're like blindfolded and all you have to do is take off the blindfolds to be able to actually see. And it was like this was in front of me the entire time. Like I had spent most of my fashion career learning about, shamanism and Reiki and astrology and like working with people. And I just couldn't see how to bridge my real life experience, like my professional experience with my spiritual experience. And then it was like a blindfold came off. Like, hello, why don't you just combine the two things that you have joy and experience in? And so I decided to start online, and I did that for many years, like on top of my regular full time job. And just kind of poured whatever extra money I had into my business. And it became like, just a monetized hobby to some extent and brought me a whole lot of joy and excitement. So back in 2023, after doing this for many years, I got an opportunity to open a store. And so this was like a huge game changer for me because I didn't see the opportunity really coming. We partner with Shishama, and I applied for their storefront program, and I didn't hear from them for months. So I was like, okay, maybe it's not going to happen, but it was up on my vision board. One day I'm going to have a store. I don't know how I'm going to get there, but I'm going to have it. One day it's going to happen. So then, in a bizarre turn of events, in August, I'll never forget. It was a Thursday. My waist beads broke. I opened up my email and I saw you've been accepted into our storefront program. And then about 4 hours later, I get another email from my boss at the company I was working for that was like, I need you to have a meeting with me tomorrow at 9:30. So of course, when I get on the meeting, and the next morning, so this is less than 12. This is like 12 hours later, barely, and their HR is on there, and I'm like, oh no, what happened? And it was like a reduction in force, which was happening at the time. Retail's a tough business. And so my position was no longer needed and I was let go immediately. So I'm like, oh my God, in less than 24 hours, my whole existence changed. I did not have a plan. All I knew is that I had an opportunity to open up the space of my dreams, and it was time to bet on myself. And so this all happened under these Pluto transits. And I think that a big part, like upon reflection, I'm thinking a lot of that had to do with fear. Like I feel like maybe I could have started a business a little bit soon. I mean, started opened a store a little bit sooner, but I didn't want to let go of my full-time job. It represented security and stability and, like consistent income, allowed me the time to, build slowly. And I think the universe was like, no, now is time. And funny enough, I kept joking like, before I found out about the about being accepted, that like if I get a store, if I ever get laid off again, I'm gonna like, I'm gonna open up a store. Like I kept joking about it, so I feel like I kind of called it into existence to some extent. Anyhow, I just kind of doubled down and buckled down and started to really believe that it was possible for me to create something, that only existed in my head before. And I think that Pluto, that's the full representation of Pluto, stripping away the things that you fear to reveal the power that you have inside of yourself so you can really kind of bet on yourself to some extent.
Oh, Shereen, that is powerful. There's so many things that I already know are going to be quoted. So thank you. But it's a really powerful story of trust and being in that in between, because I know there's a lot of women out there, especially listening, that you're in the space of who they are and who they were and who they're becoming, and then taking that chance. And I do believe that it's almost the fear and the doubt does stop us, it slows us down. But I feel when you're doing something with purpose, it is your soul's calling. That is what you're meant to do. It's gonna keep knocking at your door. Um, and I feel like that sometimes, even though it's scary at the moment, that's exactly what we needed. So thank you so much for sharing. What a powerful evolution. And I'm so glad that you're here and such an amazing store. So all the way from corporate life to creating a spiritual brand that's truly changing lives. So what was a season of transition for you like before it became the shop it is today? So take us
Yeah.
back to when you first started. Um, like how did you move through like because you already had that background in the fashion industry. How did you go from there to then building the store and then now to this extraordinary community that you have and everything that you have in there?
Yeah, I mean, I would say a lot of tears. No, I'm just kidding. Not really, but yeah, I think you know, I think it was a combination of a lot of dreaming, a lot of reading, a lot of seeking inspiration, a lot of tapping into my intuition and my creativity. I think that, previous before that, I think this store really helped me realize I was much more creative than I originally thought. Like my background in retail is very like numbers oriented. So I've done buying, planning, marketing, but I've focused more on like the analytical side. So when it came to, like actually like the creative parts of building a business, I wasn't very knowledgeable, but I understood kind of the basic financial components. So just coming back, so when I first started, I started with 7 items, and they were kits. So like these little manifestation kits that were around like if you were having a big life transition, just kind of a way for you to create space around that transition. So it had like a journal, like in a section where you could like explore like what you were feeling, what your fears were, what your hopes were, so you can kind of address them head on. And then there was a candle process because I'm a huge candle magic fan. I feel like it's kind of like pouring your desires and intentions into something physical, watching it disappear, and then the universe delivering it back to you manifested. And so the kit was really around holding space for people to navigate these big changes. So I did that for a few months, and then I decided. Then I was actually reading. I know he's like not cool. He's not not the coolest guy anymore. But back then, Jeff Bezos, there was a book that came out called The Everything Store, and so when I read it, it gave me the idea to start playing with drop shipping a bit. And so that actually was the next evolution of the business, right? So being able to not hold inventory on the items that I cared about and that I wanted to share and promote. So that allowed me to expand my assortment with minimal like financial risk, which definitely made a huge difference. And then after that, we added in a subscription box. And so that subscription box was, a curated box. Every month had a different theme, and it had tools that were reusable, told you how to use each of the tools, and how to utilize it in a ritual to improve your life or create more mindfulness and intentionality. And so those three things combined kind of were the building blocks of the business from that point forward. So after that, I kind of continued with those three things for a number of years. So and I just like kind of ran it, as you run a side hustle, right? So it was, I did it in nights, weekends. Like I won't lie to you, I wasn't spending like a bazillion hours and not sleeping. I still had like a social life. So it was just like a nice way for me to kind of start to fuel and develop this sense of creativity and confidence I had in myself, outside of my regular career. And so then the big change came when we got the opportunity to open the store. So, like, funny enough, I think the universe is constantly preparing you for what's next without you even knowing it, right? Like, I have this very specific memory of maybe the year before I opened the store. I was sitting in a meeting, and they kept putting me in these meetings around store openings. And I was like, why do I have to sit through this 2 hour meeting about, all these things that I don't care about? Like, this is me, my like little ego mind talking. And I would sit through these whole meetings and I'm like, this is so boring. Like, it would be like legal, it would be operations, it would be like all these different teams talking about the progress, a multi-month progress. So it'd be like once a week meeting talking about, all the things that needed to be done to open a store. And I'd be like, oh, I hate these meetings, they're just so stupid. But of course, like, you want to show up at work, so I was still paying attention. But the funny thing is, when I opened this store, I was like, oh, that's why the universe, had me sitting in these meetings. I feel like we often don't recognize how much the universe is conspiring on our behalf with experiences that might seem like inconsequential or small. But it's like the moment you truly tap in and pay attention, there's always some sort of wealth in every single moment that's preparing you for the future or providing you some sort of inspiration or some sort of confidence boost or something, some sort of learning, a tidbit. It could be a word, it could be a thought, it could be a feeling. And that is really directing you towards your future. It's just you have to pay attention. It's like that thought process of like two people can be walking down the street and like one person's looking on the left side of the street and they're like, this city is so dirty and crappy and there's garbage and it like sucks, right? And then the other person's looking at the right side and they're like, oh my God, this is the best city in the whole world. There's like flowers everywhere and fun people and interesting things for me to look at. And it's like, well, whose city is real, right? And it's like, whatever you're looking at is what's real. So I feel like thinking about that, I think a lot about how can I be present and also be open and seeking opportunity as I navigate life? And how do I show up in a way trusting that I'm being guided? And I feel like that's probably the biggest thing that I've learned over the last couple of years. Like anytime I get frustrated, I'm like, okay, what is this moment trying to show me or teach me? And I think that that really, really, really helped me navigate, the complications, of becoming an entrepreneur, stepping into that, leaving the comfort of a full-time, well-paid job into, essentially chaos and unpredictability. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you so much for sharing that. Just the fact that so many people um, don't try something because we don't know what's going to happen, but it's that trusting and the surrendering. And also, I feel it's very strongly with the preparation of from the universe before we even get to that actual next step. And I'm getting all tingly inside whenever you're saying that. I was like, oh my God, it's like always. And one question I wanted to ask is how, obviously, I know through experience, but where is there one thing that helped you during that time to realize, oh shoot, this is exactly what I'm supposed to be doing, even though there's a lot of like there's chaos that's happening, there is unpredictability, because that is the truth of entrepreneurship. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't talk about because we only see what's curated on social media and magazines and TV, but we don't really see the actual process, the messiness, the chaos, the uh,
Tears.
tears, the rage, the like, I'm just, should I even be doing this? Should I go back to full time? What the hell was I thinking? But then
Yeah.
you realize what you're doing is way bigger than you because it's purpose driven, it's impact, it's an impact. Really focusing on community. So, what's one thing that you could share that really helped you to see and really hear the nudges and those whispers and sometimes screaming from the universe?
Yeah. And I feel like this is something that, like I try not to be a seeker of external validation, right? Like I feel like I like, that's like one of the things. Like, don't be driven. I have a Leo moon, so like I'm, whatever. It is what it is. But I do think I will say one of the things that two things really keep me going. One is like people, right? Like just being able to hear the right words at the right time. That's like a huge thing because there have been so many moments where I'm like, oh, does this mean anything? Do people care? Like, are people ready for this? Like, are they finding value in this type of work? Like, does my story matter to anyone besides me? And I feel like every time, like, I kid you not, every time I start to kind of go down that path, someone shows up and they're like, oh my God, I manifested this store. And I'm like, what you mean you manifested this store? And they're like, I've been dreaming of something like this to come to my neighborhood so that I could have a space to just, like really reflect and think about where I am. And I feel like that means a lot to me because one, it reiterates the fact that we're co creating together, right? Like, if you have a dream, there's probably a bunch of other people who are dreaming of what you're dreaming, but on the receiving end. And I feel like trusting that like is really, really wonderful. And like when I hear that, I'm like, okay, this makes sense. My dream is affecting and influencing others in a positive way. And then secondary, it's like the feeling I get when I'm working on something I'm super excited about. Like, like that feeling that just comes from my heart and from my gut that's like, this is so fun. I don't even know if I care if anybody buys it because I'm so excited about what it can do and how it can help and how it's making me feel in the creation process. And I feel like trusting that is actually really important because even if like it doesn't sell or it doesn't do what you expect it to do, I think that putting that energy out into the world, something always comes back. Maybe not in the way you expected it or you wanted it to, but something always comes back that takes you to that next step. And I feel like I really, really deeply trust and believe that part.
Oh, Shereen, thanks so much for sharing. And I wanted to highlight something, a few things that you said. So good. There's a book. Have you read that book by Elizabeth Gilbert, Big Magic? I was trying to find the name of it. So
Yes.
you were sharing how the ideas and the co-creation, and so that sparked that specific book because I remember reading it. It was a while, maybe a few years ago, but it's like these ideas that it's almost like it comes to you like a download. And you have that vision already, and then it's almost like it's out in the ether. Maybe that someone else is thinking the same thing. It's just powerful when we really look at it because of the energy
Yeah.
and more information on how that is true. And we think about, well, Wi-Fi is everywhere. We don't see it, but we know it's
Yeah.
there.
Yeah,
Um,
it's definitely true. Like I love that book so much. I think it was a fantastic book. And I feel like one of the things she says that really stuck with me is like, like there's this out in the ether, out in the universe, in the collective unconscious or whatever you want to call it, right? There's these ideas and they're coming down, they're coming down. And she says that you know, when you get that idea, it might be a general idea, but it being filtered through you is what makes it unique. You give it its own unique spin, its own unique flavor. So like even if you have an idea and you're like, "Oh, someone else did that." It's always going to be different because of you, right? Your experiences, your special magic, your perspective. So like I feel like there's probably lots of people that like want to open crystal businesses or crystal shops or metaphysical stores or whatever it is, but like this version of this specific metaphysical shop was filtered through me because of the type of person I am. It is the way that it is, right? It's different than another place because it was filtered through their perspectives and their needs and their desires. And I feel like really honoring and respecting your own perspective that it's valid, that it's needed, that there are others that might resonate with it, I feel like is a big part of the entrepreneurial journey, right? Like trusting that your wisdom, your perspective is needed because it's different than what other people might do. And there are people that will be attracted to that. So I feel like I love that you bring that up. That's such a great book. I like totally recommend you guys read it.
Totally. And something you said, oh my God, there's so many great quotes here. Thank you, Shereen. You just said, because you make it an idea, maybe someone else has done it, but the importance is it gets filtered through you. So right there, that statement, because so many people stop themselves thinking that, oh, it's saturated market, it's someone already did it, I can't do it, maybe I should shelf my, put my idea back up on the shelf. But it's the thing that's the most important that I feel like should be shared everywhere and blasted. It's like, no one is you. No
Yeah.
one thinks like you. No one will have the idea. No one will build it like you. And no one has that perspective and experience that only you can bring.
Yes.
So thank you. And it is getting filtered through you and every individual person. Ooh, I love that. Okay.
I
Um,
mean, Elizabeth Gilbert.
but this is such a powerful reminder. So let's get into so if anyone is listening right now and they're going through their own Pluto transit or transits, maybe life shaking things up to rebuild, what's one thing that they can do today to ground themselves through that process? I'll first say go to the My Little Magic shop if you're in New York City. But go
Yeah, and you know, I think you should let yourself feel it. Like I feel like often, like especially like someone like me, I want to fix everything. I'm like, I don't want to feel like this anymore. Make it be over. And I think Pluto has really taught me to feel the things and then take a step back from those feelings and just observe them. And I say this because I'll never forget. So in January, maybe for those that are into astrology, they might remember this, but Mars was going retrograde, right? And so Mars's position was activating this Pluto energy for me. So Mars is like planet of war and fire, and it just like amplifies all the energy that's already there. So it's like just directly at this Pluto transit. And I remember there's a night where I could not sleep. Was like so anxious, complete spiral, like you made the biggest mistake of your life. Why would you think that you could do this? Like this is such a big undertaking. You don't have the tools, you don't have the resources, you're gonna go broke. And I let myself spiral for a little bit because I wanted to understand what was below all of that, so I'm like, okay, so what happens if like it fails and like you have to shut down, then what? And I was like, well, then I'll be poor and I'll be homeless and like my life is gonna fall apart and nobody's gonna fall in love with me, like super existential, like like crisis spiraling. And so then I got to this place where I was like, wait a second, so if all of that happens, right, and you're like homeless and you're on the street and like like the worst case scenario happens, the one thing no one could ever take from you is your experiences lived, right? Like, no one can ever take that from me. Like, no one can ever take from me that I was able to take an idea, a desire, something that brought me like excitement and purpose and create it into something physical. And that something physical was our online shop, is our physical store, is the community that we built. No one can take away the fact that I've done that, right? And I think that that realization was exactly what the Pluto energy was forcing out of me. That, like, even if everything else falls apart, like, I still have the power to rebuild and recreate because I have experience that can't be unexperienced. So, for anybody who is out there going through, a powerful Pluto transit, I would say allow yourself for a second to spiral. See what's at the bottom of that spiral and then observe it and get to the crux of what do I really fear? And is that fear even relevant or valid? Or is it just like literally a voice in my head that is, preventing me from doing things that I'm terrified of. So, that's what I would say on in terms of tackling Pluto transits. It's about at the end of the day, like learning about the power you have. Like no one can take your experience away. So even if everything falls apart, you can still rebuild because you did it once before.
Oh, yes. Thank you so much for sharing that, Shereen. I think that is such a powerful way of reframing. And it is, I do believe that too. You gotta go through it because the more we avoid it, the bigger it seems like it gets even bigger when it's actually once you look at it and you remind yourself, well, look what I've been able to do. So why wouldn't I be able to get myself out of this position if I even if got to the worst case scenario? And something my mentor would always share is if we can handle the worst case scenario, we can definitely handle the best case scenario. And most of life happens in the middle case scenario.
That's
That's how
true.
he would always try to explain it to
Yeah.
really like give people hope that no, you can.
Yeah. And let's talk about the best case scenario for a second too, because
Yes, let's talk about
another thing I learned with this Pluto transit is, fear of success, right?
yes.
Like
Let's go.
that's something I think people don't talk about that one enough, like I think that it doesn't even sounds funny saying it. Like, what is a fear of success? I don't have fear of money. I don't have fear of success. But the truth is, I think that many people, or at least I can speak for myself, like the underlying thing with fear of success is how much do I have to change? Can I be the same person that I am right now and still get the success that I desire and crave, right? And what does that other person even look like that is successful? And I feel like that, like that fear, like there's a fear of letting go of like the old way of existing, the old way of being, like that that can kind of keep you stuck. So I feel like as much as or failure, in entrepreneurship, I think there's also tackling like fear of success, and like what does that look like for you? Like, are you scared of, being seen? Are you scared of having money? Are you scared of having money and then losing the money that you have? Like, like those are definitely things to really think about. And I feel like on my journey, like, that's why I always like make a joke. Like I'm no one's guru. I'm like literally figuring stuff out as I go. I'm learning, like I have, I just kind of just keep pushing myself. Okay, what are you scared of? Like how do you release that fear? And really just constantly questioning and pushing myself to grow is really, really important to me.
Oh, that is such a great topic. Sharita, I might get you to come back. Yeah, because fear of success is such a huge topic. And I know I've had both the worst case scenario, and one of my fears had always been I'm going to be homeless. I said going to be in New York City, like I said, it's over. All the way to fear of success, and that's something that I've definitely struggled with. And then I start seeing this is what gets wild is when you do start asking those questions and you're more curious, you start to catch the patterns that you're doing that start to sabotage you or slow you down. It's like, ugh, I'm doing it again because I'm scared of being seen. Uh, what if, and just because of my own personal story of debt and all the things that I went through, is like, oh my God, what if I get this much money? And then I go all the way back over here. It's like, oh my, this is like this constant swinging of extremes. But, but it's the questioning, the curiosity, and the humbleness too. I believe that we're always continuing to learn and to have that humility, because I mean, the more that I learn, the more I learn I don't know anything. And I
Yeah.
feel that was one of the, it's like the wise ones say that they always, it's like, it's that humbling, but knowing that you gain that experience, but you're still, it's a forever journey. Listen. We're gonna have to come back and do that fear of success and just talk about that because that's such a good topic.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I would love that.
listen. So let's see, and the fear of letting go of what no longer fits.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
let
I'm
me.
like, that's a, yeah, that's like cause it's a purging, a clearing. And like, sometimes you want to hold on to it because you're like, who am I without this thing? Who am I without this habit, without this belief, without that? And the thing is, it's like more of a fear of the unknown, right? Like, if
Yep,
I let this go, then what? I don't know what that looks like. I'm going to have to adjust to a whole new reality. What if I don't like that reality? What if that reality is too much or it's too stressful? And I think that those are all valid, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. You shouldn't try it, give it a shot.
definitely agree. And always, um, there's those like stats about how everyone share. Or no, there's stats about what everyone says before their end of life. And it's the some of the top things is, I wish I would have been more like me. I wish I would have had more time. I wish I would have tried all the things that I was too scared to try. And so it's always a reminder, or that's always a good reminder. Like, will you resent not trying at the end of your days?
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely true. I feel like that's, like, and I don't want that. Like, that's not, I rather, tried and failed miserably just to know that I, like, at least I gained the experience. And I feel like another thing with failure is like, it's a weird thing because is it truly like the end, or if is it just like a pivot or like a plot point or something in your story? So many of my failures led to something, more exciting. All those rejections were just redirections. And I know that that's like, feels very cliche thing to say, but I like honestly deeply believe that every time I heard a no, like there was a yes somewhere else. And of course, it doesn't take away the fact that every no is painful. Again, Leo moon. So like every no is, like hurts my feelings. And I have to like take some time to mourn that no. But I think that very often there is a yes that's better aligned. And sometimes we don't know what we're being protected from or like what we're being redirected around. Like sometimes something can seem perfect and wonderful and great, and then, but it wasn't in alignment with us and would have taken us away from something even better. So I feel like I, really am working to continue to develop that trust around that.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for sharing that. The definitely with the failure, I know the same thought I had too is, I I believe you're always being led to whatever path where you're supposed to be. Um, and then the allowance of giving yourself that time to mourn like those no's. I feel like that's missing as well in entrepreneurship. It's like, okay, well, let me keep going. I was like, no, sometimes you need to stop, process, because the more you learn how you are, instead of like being so harsh on yourself. I know, because I used to do this all the time. Like, there's no emotions and feeling back then. That's why Repurpose Your Life was born. I was like, no, friends, we're gonna do this in a holistic way. Because back then I was like, I'm not feeling, I'm not crying, I'm not doing anything. I'm just gonna keep working. Till I burn myself out.
Yep.
But that really understanding you, and I was like, okay, well, I know this is going to happen. I'm going to give myself some time. I know how I work. All right. And finding ways to work with yourself and really understanding yourself, I think, is really important because it is like building a business. Oh, I don't know who said this quote. I'm probably going to mess it up, but it's the hardest thing about building a business is not the building of the business itself, it's building you.
Yep. 1,000,000%. That is like, I feel like that was probably the biggest shocker of, committing to this journey full time, was that I realized it was not about the business. It was about managing my emotions, managing my feelings, managing my levels of trust, keeping myself motivated and inspired. Like, it was literally a managing of me. And no one explained that to me. They're like, just do this for the business and think strategically and make a plan and like all of that stuff, which you should do all of that. But like, no one was just like, hey, like, when you're all in your feelings and sad and depressed about, how sales are not what you want them to be, sales will just continue being that way until you shift your entire energy and vibration. And the second you shift it, it's like people are flooding in and they're coming. It's like a weird, crazy, strange thing that like literally no one explained to me. And so seeing that play out in real time and understanding the importance of like being your own hype man and like getting yourself excited, also allowing yourself to feel what you need to feel so you can release it and learn from it, right? So you can then push forward, is just as important as developing strategy and marketing and all of that stuff. Managing you is the biggest part.
Yes, and I wish someone would have told us that too. That because that's the most important part, I believe.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, listen. Um, so now I always like to talk about the reciprocity that all businesses and especially purpose-driven ones. And one thing I admire so much about you, Shereen, is how much you give back. You hold space through your shop, your events, your readings, and your community. You have a loyal community that come and support. And then because of the energy that you hold, you bring, that store, then it's reflected into your store. It's like the the love that comes through those doors just when it's new people like, oh my god, I didn't even realize you were here.
Yeah.
So you said before, I'm holding space in as many different ways that I can. Can you talk about what that means to you?
Yeah, yeah. I think that I got into this because I really want the world to become a better place, right? And I think that that better place is really led by individual internal change, right? So, like, your inner world reflects your outer world. And I feel like the more people that can connect with a better inner story, a happier, more optimistic, more loving, love centered inner world, the more that our outer world will reflect that. And so I feel like a big part of that is being of service. So I feel like we are a place that's of service. And I feel like with holding space, that's probably one of the coolest services you can provide for someone, right? Like being able to be their container as they process, as they grow and evolve. And I feel like we try to do that in as many different ways as possible for our customers. When our customers come in, there's a journey they can take throughout the entire store, which is essentially holding space for them to process and really consider, where am I now? Where do I want to go? Which I think is really beautiful and wonderful. Then also for our healers and our practitioners, like, they are all evolving in their practices, in their work, and in their businesses. So holding space for them to be able to shine, for them to be able to do work that matters, and then also helping them to see opportunities for themselves that potentially they didn't see before. Also holding space for people to have events. So it's like not only the customers growing and learning, but all of the practitioners, all of the healers growing with us. And then we're starting to partner with organizations outside of the shop to be able to hold space in a multiple different ways, right? So like with companies that are wanting to do so for their employees, with nonprofit organizations that are wanting to give back to their community. So I'm really in a place where I'm open, and I think that we all grow. Like when I grow, we grow when others grow, I grow. So I feel like it's kind of this environment that like everyone's kind of benefiting off of the vibe in general. So I think that giving back is just a core part of, you know, being there for people. And I want to live in a world where, we co-create together a little bit more, and we're not like, constantly like in competition with each other. Like I was thinking about the word competition this morning, and like how strange of a thing it is, because at the end of the day, there's enough for everyone. There's enough resources. We just have to believe and trust and put our heads together in terms of creating that and being willing to share with each other. So it's like, instead of thinking of competition, think of inspiration, think of motivation, think of, ways that we can be of service to each other. And I feel like when we shift this into this mindset collectively, the whole world kind of evolves with that in mind. Like there's so many ways that as humans we can partner with each other and help each other out, and we all rise together.
Thank you so much for sharing that. It is so true with community and just the collaboration and working together. I do feel like that's something that's really important, definitely in the world that we're living in, and definitely as entrepreneurs. And the fact that what you have built and how much it's grown to what it is now, and the space and the opportunities. It's true. It's a constant reciprocity, just like in nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Give and take, and it's a circular, just always circulating. And for anyone who wants to support your work or be part of your mission, how can they connect with you or the shop?
Yes, absolutely. So you can visit us at mylittlemagicshop.com. That's our website. Our store is located on the corner of 94th and Amsterdam, on the Upper West Side in Manhattan, New York. You can also reach out to us on our website. So on our website, we have this really cool, it's like an AI agent that we have trained with our voice, that we're super excited, that is there to help with all of your questions. You can ask it about rituals and crystals and all sorts of fun stuff, which is really helpful. And then someone's monitoring. Don't worry, there's a human. And we also host a ton of events. You can also follow us on social media. So we're at My Little Magic Shop on both Instagram and TikTok. And you can see our antics and all the magic we are here creating.
Yeah, thanks so much, Shereen. It is the best metaphysical store in New York City. People can say I'm biased. Maybe, I host events there too. I love the My Little Magic Shop. So thank you so much, Shereen. And if there's anything else you'd like to share, leave the audience with, what a powerful conversation today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Like, I would say if I want to leave you guys with something is like, bet on yourself. Like whatever this is, there's never been a time more prime for betting on yourself than now. There's so many tools, so many resources, so many bits of inspiration. So now is the time for you to just, take one step towards betting on yourself, and I feel like the rest will kind of unfold. But thank you again so much. We love you at the shop. We can't wait to see you soon. Isabel does wonderful soul readings and cleansings here every Saturday from 4 to 7, as well as new moon and full moon sound baths that are purely just pure magic. People walk out like looking like their whole lives and existences have changed. But
Thanks,
thank you so
Shereen.
much for having me.
Thank you so much. And Shireen's story is such a beautiful reminder that even in the Pluto transits, those rebuilds, that destruction isn't failure, it's a transformation that we need. And it's life clearing out what's no longer aligned so you can build something stronger, softer, more you. And then Shireen, this is the best part. She is proof that you can blend magic and strategy, that you can create from intuition without losing the structure. And if you're in a season of change right now, the conversation is your reminder. Sometimes the universe is not breaking you down, but it's breaking you open right into the path that you're supposed to be on, my friend. So, again, thank you so much to all of you. Thank you for your wisdom, Shereen, your light, and for being such a powerful force of alignment and truth. And to everyone listening, if you love this episode, share it with a friend who's rebuilding. And make sure to visit the My Little Magic Shop if you're in New York City, 697 Amsterdam Avenue in the Upper West Side. And until next time, keep rising, keep trusting, and keep creating. See you next time on the Beyond the Hustle.